All right, welcome back, third grade. Hopefully, you're having a great week after your break. I know my kids certainly enjoyed the break from school and just our homeschool routine. So, we are going to today do a quick review of our cumulative test 20A that you're going to take this week. I just wanted to go over some of the concepts covered in this because a cumulative test means that it's not just a test about what you just learned, but it's a test about what you've been learning all year. And so sometimes we just need a little reminder. Our brain needs a refresher on what we're learning. So the first question on your test is about volume. And for some of us this year, even for me teaching it and trying to find different ways to help your brain to wrap your mind around volume, is sometimes a challenge. And so I want to go over volume again before you take your test. So I'm not going to do the same exact problem as number one, but if you have your math book, you can go with me to lesson 73. And in lesson 73 on page 396, there's an example about a volume question. And I've drawn in my not so expert drawing here a box, just like the one they're talking about. And so remember, when we talk about area is different from volume. When we talk about area, we're talking about a 2D object. So like a box that I draw, or not even a box, a square that I would draw on my board is 2D. It's two-dimensional. It's just a flat square that I draw. And to find the area of that, we multiply one side by the other, right? We multiply like this. If one side were 4 inches long and one side were 5 inches long, I would multiply, this one looks longer, 5 by 4. And that would tell me, let's say these were inches, 5 inches by 4 inches. That would tell me how many square inches I could fit inside this square. So we call it square inches. All right, but with volume, remember that with volume, we're talking about three-dimensional objects. So we're talking about a box that I could fill with. In this case, we're talking about cubes. And sometimes it would be cubic feet or cubic inches. It depends on the problem. But just imagine if I had little 1-inch cubes, which is about the size of a dice, and I'm trying to fill them into a box. Remember in class how we took little boxes and we filled them with blocks. And we counted how many blocks fit in each layer. And when we added up all the layers, so if there were 20 in the first layer and there were 2 layers, we would add those together to find the answer. So we're gonna look at something a lot like that right now. So Millie filled a small gift box with 1-inch cubes, just like we're talking about. So we can imagine those. I almost imagine those like little dice. She's filled a little box full of dice. The picture shows the top layer, but there are 2 layers of cubes. All right, so if you're looking with me at the picture, sometimes it's hard to see on these, but there are 1, 2, 3, 4 that fit in that direction, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that fit in that direction. So I can multiply, just like on my multiplication table, it's set up almost just like that. I see that I have 4 times 5, and I can multiply 4 times 5 and know that there's 20. Or I could count up all 20 of my dice or my cubes in this top layer. All right, so now that I know that there's 20 dice that fit in this layer, it goes on. That doesn't tell me everything. That just tells me the top layer, right? So now it says there are 2 layers of cubes. So I'm imagining this is the side of the box, but in my mind, I'm kind of imagining when they say that the dice go about this deep all the way around, right? Okay, and so from the front, I can kind of see, like on this one, I can see a few sides of my dice. And then there's a whole nother layer down here of my second row of dice. Okay, so now, without seeing every single dice, if I know that there are 20 in this layer and 20 in this layer, then I just need to add those together and I can find my volume. And my volume is how many cubes, how many 1-inch cubes altogether fit inside this box. So again, I know there's 20 in this layer and 20 in this layer. So altogether there's 40. and I would make sure that everyone knows I'm talking about volume, and they told me they were inches, by writing 40 cubic, and I can abbreviate cubic by putting CU, cubic, inches. I can abbreviate inches by putting IN. 40 cubic inches. All right? So when you see that on your test, hopefully that will refresh your memory about volume. All right, the next question that I thought we might need to talk a little bit about is number 3, and it talks about an array. Write the multiplication fact illustrated by this array, number 3. Now remember, the array is kind of just like we just talked about with our volume and our area. All of this is related, and our multiplication table. So if I imagine this like a little multiplication table, I can count up how many rows I have in each direction. And on the multiplication table, all the numbers are in there, and I could kind of run my finger along it and find the right answer. In this case, I could sit here and I could add it all up, but they don't want how many total dots are in this array. They want to know the multiplication fact. So I do need the total, I need the answer, but I need the problem too. So if I took number 3 and I just wrote the answer to how many are in this array, I wouldn't get the right answer.